StrayAllDay.com.
You're now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative, which is to go get an energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques all underneath the umbrella of one unified philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic is emotion and ego, the enemies of innovation and success. Before we get into this, I remind you all of two things. First of all, my daily motivation and Monday motivation message is guaranteed to have you focused, sharp, and on point to start your day or your week, respectively. All you have to do to receive these messages is be a member of my texting community. It is free to join. Just send me a text to the following number, 305-384-6894. And when we start sending those messages out again, once we reactivate, you'll be getting them straight to your phone. And you can even choose how much you're going to get from us. Secondly, Work on Your Game University. That's the place where I do all of my coaching. It is based on helping you perform at your highest possible level, do so consistently, and produce higher level results because of this high performance and consistency. If that sounds like your formula, that sounds like your cup of coffee, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. You can see more about our program and how to get started. That out the way, let's get into the topic, which is emotion and ego. These are the enemies of innovation and success. This masterclass episode is about you understanding that your emotions often get in the way of your logical thinking, and your ego, which is basically the security guard for your emotions. Basically, your ego is just your sense of self and how you feel about yourself and your life. Your ego co-signs what your emotions are telling you. So you have to be careful about allowing your emotions and your ego to tell you what to do. You got to learn how to ignore emotions sometimes, and you have to ignore sometimes what your ego is telling you, even though, again, ego is not a negative thing, but you have to learn when to listen to it and when not to. Same thing with your emotions. And if your ultimate goal is achieving at your highest levels of sustained success, because sometimes your ego and emotions will take you in the wrong direction. So sometimes they work for you to go where you want to go. Sometimes they don't. Today I'm going to explain when those times that they don't are, so that you don't make this mistake. Point number one, again, emotion and ego, enemies of innovation and success. Number one, remember that emotions are great gas pedals, but terrible steering wheels. Great gas pedals, but terrible steering wheels. When you are looking to be successful or to come up with innovative and creative ways to get to success, your emotions may fight against you, because for you to become successful, you may be required to do some things that go against the grain of what you are used to doing. And your emotions don't like being taken outside of what they're used to doing. This is also known as your comfort zone. What you are used to doing is known as your comfort zone. Your emotions do not like being pushed outside of the comfort zone. Therefore, if and when you ever step outside of or are pushed outside of your comfort zone, your emotions immediately start signaling the alarm and letting you know that it is uncomfortable and you should stop doing whatever it is you're doing right now, because it's uncomfortable, because you're doing something that you're not used to doing. You must learn when to quiet that signal. In other words, you got to learn when to turn the alarm off, because it's a false alarm. Any of you have an alarm system in your home? Maybe you got a pet or a child, or somebody comes in the house and they didn't disarm the alarm the right way and the alarm starts going off, but it's a false alarm because there's no intruder, there's no real problem. You just got to learn you got to know what the code is to turn the alarm off, right? Because it's not supposed to be going off right now. That's what you need. When you're looking to be successful, this will happen because you're getting outside of your comfort zone. It's emotionally disturbing to go through this experience. Your emotions are always going to push back. And especially if you're pushing far, and the further and further you go outside of your comfort zone, the more your emotions are going to tell you to stop doing whatever you're doing. And when you're looking to achieve outsized levels of success, this is going to happen over and over again. You're going to step outside of your comfort zone. Your emotions are going to yell and scream and kick about it. And you must have a system for managing and dealing with that alarm system when it goes off. Because if you don't, then your emotions will win and they will put you back to where you were. Understand, emotions always overpower logic. So if you don't have a system set up already to quiet those emotions, then your emotions will make noise until they have overpowered your logic and sent you right back, scurrying back into your comfort zone, back to the things you already are aware of and already know how to do and the way you're already living. And then you're going to stay there for another 5 years. And 5 years from now, you're going to be saying again, hey, I need to go do that thing that you should have did 5 years ago. But you didn't have a system for quieting your emotions. Therefore, your emotions beat you and sent you back to where you shouldn't have went. This is what happens. The better prepared you are for this happening, the better you'll be able to deal with it when it happens, not if it happens, but when it happens. And it won't be a surprise to you because you know it's coming. See, things that you know are coming, you're able to deal with a lot better than things you don't see coming. In combat sports, is the punch that you don't see that knocks you out. It's not the one that hits you the hardest. So this is not about smothering or ignoring or denying your emotions, but in recognizing, respecting the presence of them, and being prepared to handle them when they flare up and start to make their voices heard. Because your emotions will make their voices heard. You're a human being, so you will always have emotions. It's just about how you handle them, not about whether or not they exist. So how long do you allow them to control you versus how long you are able to manage and control and corral them? That's really the key question here. Point number 2. Today's topic, once again, is emotion and ego are enemies of innovation and success. Number 2, ego often gets in the way when you need to stop doing something that you are used to doing, especially if it's something you're good at, or when you need to swallow your pride and admit that something you've been doing is simply not working, even though the swallowing of the pride will actually get you to success. This is when ego gets in the way. Ego is simply your sense of self. It's your sense of being, is a sense of who you are and why you are and what your value is and what you bring to the table. Ego can be your friend, and it can be very useful in certain aspects of life. Okay, ego is useful at certain times. Ego can also be your worst enemy in other aspects of life, depending on how you allow it to control your actions and your thinking. So this is why we need to understand our ego, know when to leverage and use our ego, and also when to keep it quiet and keep it out of the conversation. You have to know when ego is useful and when it is not. Different people have different levels of egocentric focus, meaning some people have a stronger sense of self than others. And the people with the stronger sense of self, you may need this egocentric control, ego focus, let's say, control more than other people need it. Those of you who have weaker senses of self, you also got to be careful, because when you have a weaker sense of self and a weaker ego, then your emotions can be triggered a lot more easily by someone simply because you don't have anything standing in the way. Again, ego is the cosigner of your emotions, or the security guard of your emotions, if you will. And if you have a weak ego, then your security system for your emotions is not working, which means anybody can tap into your emotions, which means they can move you to action very easily. And sometimes that's good and sometimes it's not. So this is why you got to understand all these pieces. So the perfect mix here is you want to be confident enough that you respect and will leverage your ego when necessary, but also humble enough to understand that your ego sometimes gets in your way and it tries to have a say when it should not have a say. Ego sometimes tries to get you to do things that the ego shouldn't even be offering its 2 cents on. And there's a balance to be found here, and it doesn't necessarily mean 50-50. Balance does not mean equal. It just means the balance that makes the most sense for you given your circumstance, environment, and your goals. Balance simply means everything has to add up to the total of, let's say, 100%. It doesn't have to be half and half. If it's 4, it doesn't have to be 25, 25, 25, 25. Balance can be 90-10. It can be 10-90, right, depending on the situation. So you just have to understand what your ego is telling you, and also, again, know when to put it away. Know when to swallow your ego, when to swallow your pride and put that aside. And many of us in life have had situations in which we allowed our egos to make us either take an action or abstain from an action that we probably should have taken had we allowed our logic to have a say rather than allowing our ego to control things. Ego is much more connected to our emotions than it is connected to our logical thinking sensors. So you got to know when to turn it off. All right, when to put your pride aside and say, okay, even though my ego tells me I should do A and B, I'm going to put my ego aside and I'm going to do C and D, because C and D, and here's how you make a decision, folks. C and D is more likely to get me towards the desired outcome that I'm after than A and B is. That's how you make a decision. Your decisions based on your ego or based on your emotions or based on anything else need to be measured against what gets me to the goal more effectively, more efficiently, or what gets me to the goal, period. That's the question you're always asking anytime you are questioning whether you're going to do a thing or not do a thing, whether you should keep doing something or discontinue doing it. You measure it against what is going to get me to the outcome. And again, the balance here does not have to be 50-50. Balance just means it needs to add up to 100%. So if that's 90-10, so be it. Point number 3. Today's topic, once again, is emotion and ego. They are enemies of innovation and success. Number 3. Remember that success operates by specific formulas. In different aspects of life, there's a formula for success in every aspect. And rarely is the formula for success to put your ego first or allow your emotions to grab the steering wheel. Very rare very rare situations in life where the formula for success is put your ego up front and then just let everything go off what your ego thinks. And very rarely is there a part of life where achieving success means allow your emotions to grab the steering wheel and just do whatever they want you to do. That's usually not how it works. Success operates by formulas. In the business world, there is a formula for creating success. In every sport, each individual sport, there is a formula for success. In business, every industry, there are formulas for success. Can someone break the mold and come up with a new formula that does actually work, maybe even better than the old formulas? Yes. But at the same time, you're taking a big risk in trying to create something new because there's a good chance that you will fail. And that time that you use trying to prove your new formula works, you can't get that time back. So be careful if you're going to go against the grain of anything. If you're going to go against the grain, have solid reasons which you can articulate for why you will go against the grain, not just because it's going against the grain. That's not a good enough reason. A good enough reason can be, okay, I see when people do it this way, this takes too long, longer than I want it to take. It's very inefficient, and it is not fitting of my abilities. But if I was to do it this way, this is fitting my abilities. It appears there's an opportunity this could work even faster and more effectively. Let me try it out and test it, and let's see if that's true. Now, you can test anything. And the reason for testing something can simply be because nobody's doing it, or because it's going against the grain, or because I thought that maybe this little tweak might work. You can test anything. That don't commit fully to it. You test it. You test and say, okay, I'm going to do this for this long, and I'm going to get this many outcomes. And based on that, I'm going to decide if this makes sense to keep doing it, or it makes sense to go back and do things the way I was doing them before, or it makes sense to come up with another idea. Maybe that one wasn't the right one, but there needs to be something different. The formula for success, folks, needed for your particular endeavor should be something that you find out very early in the process. And usually you can find this from someone who has already achieved success in that space. All right, you want to know the formula for success and what you do, go find someone who has already achieved success in what you do. Look at what they did, or ask them if you can. Read their books if they have them. Often they do. Watch their speeches if they have them. Watch their interviews. Usually they have all three. And see what they say. And then follow their program. That's it. Find someone who's already achieved success and model your success after them. Doesn't mean you have to do the same things the same way. Doesn't mean you have to look like them, talk like them, or walk like them, but you do need to understand the principles that they follow and make sure you follow those same principles. That's success right there in a nutshell. The challenge with this is not that people don't understand the concept. The challenge is when people find out what successful people really did as opposed to what you thought they did in order to achieve their success. What happens is many people realize, okay, maybe I don't want to be as successful as I thought I did because I don't want to do all the stuff that I now know that person did to get to where they are. That's how people usually end up not being successful. Not that they lack information, or they don't have the insight, or they can't do the work. It's just they don't want to do the work when they find out what the work is. Like, oh, I know he did all that to become successful. I thought he only did these few things, but no, he did all these 100 things. I don't want to do 100 things. I'm good with being where I'm at. That's the way most people have their thought process when they're looking into success, at least when you take the next step here. The next step is going and actually finding out what it does take. Just saying you want to be successful is one thing, but finding out what it actually takes to be successful is another thing. So you don't want to be playing a guessing game. You want to go find out from someone who's already done it. And you don't be playing trial and error, doing everything on your own with your most valuable resource, which is your time. So once you know what the formula for success is in your space, you can decide how much or how your ego and your emotions will be involved in the process. Maybe the answer is zero. Maybe they need to sit on the sideline for a minute, and as far as this part of the process goes, and hey, maybe it's okay if they do get in the game, depending on how you want them to be in the game. So you may find that for some success formulas, no ego or emotion is necessary at all. You just need to follow the path and just go where it takes you. You don't need your ego. You don't need your emotions involved. And you need to be okay with that, because remember that the goal here is success. Just remember what the goal is, folks. I tell you all the time, results-based business. It's about the result. It is not about how you feel. It's not about your emotions. It is not about your ego. It is about what achieves the goal. If you happen to be able to serve your emotions and your ego in the process of doing what gets to the goal, great, congratulations. You were able to pull off a feat of getting all of them at the same time. But you need to be willing and able to sacrifice your ego and your emotions in order to achieve outcomes if you are a serious high-level performer. Let me say that sentence again. If you're a serious high-level performer, you must be willing to sacrifice your ego and your emotions in the name of achieving outcomes. And you would never sacrifice outcomes in exchange for ego and emotion. Don't ever do that. If you ever made that mistake, ball up your fist and punch yourself in the face. All right, don't do that. Let's recap today's class, which is emotion and ego. They are enemies of innovation and success. Number one, remember that emotions are great gas pedals, but they are terrible steering wheels. When you're looking to be successful or come up with innovative and creative ways to get to success, your emotions will fight against you because you are being pushed outside of your comfort zone. That's the way it's supposed to feel. When you find yourself outside of your comfort zone and your emotions are screaming at you, say good, because that's exactly the way you're supposed to feel when you are challenging yourself the right way. Number two, ego often gets in the way when you need to stop doing something that you are used to doing or that you're good at, or you need to just put your pride to the side and admit that something you've been doing is just not working. Might be a combination of both of those. And many people are not willing to swallow their pride. Many people are way too prideful, and that pride can start to become arrogance when you rather serve that than serve what actually gets you to your goal. So you have to be very careful when you're allowing your pride to speak for you, that you're not allowing pride to cloud your judgment and make you forget what the actual prize is, which is the result. The prize is not your ego, the prize is the outcome. And number three, success operates by specific formulas in every space in life. Rarely does the formula involve putting your ego first or allowing your emotions to grab the steering wheel when they don't belong on the wheel at all, ever. So you got to be vigilant about these blocking you from getting to your success. Formula for success in your particular space is usually pretty easy to find. Just go find someone who's already achieved it and look at what they did, deconstruct their process, or if they already did it for you, often they have, just go find out how they explained it, and then you need to go do that same thing. Guaranteed somewhere in there, you're going to have to do something that goes against the grain of what your emotions want to do. It goes against the grain of your ego. You must be willing to accept that and do it anyway. That's how you get to success. That's the hard part. That's the challenging part. And that's the thing that most people don't want to do. Question is, what will you do? That said, text me so you're in my community. My number's down below in the description. Also, workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link, workonyourgameuniversity.com. For high-level performers who want to perform at your highest level, do so consistently, and generate more results with me as your direct coach, taking the tools that we got from the sports professional world and translating those over to the business world, mindset, strategy, systems, and accountability for implementation. Go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre, all